Well, ladies and gentlemen, with the results officially in of the 2024 election, I wanted to take a look and do a little comparison of where we could be headed in terms of the migration within the United States and Republicans gaining significant electoral votes depending on if it continues. This is kind of like a projection. It's just 2024. There's going to be another census in 2030, which will be in time for the 2032 election. And then also, I wanted to look at Trump's approval rating because technically, right now, I don't think there's an official approval rating. It's more just favorability because he's not the president yet. He's just the president elect. But it's very obvious that Trump's going to enter the White House with a positive approval rating, which will be the first time we've really ever seen that from Donald Trump. That was one of the things that liberals would always hold over Trump's head about how negative his popularity was, things like that. Well, he's going to be given a chance here, and I'm going to do some speculation on what I think is going to happen to Trump's approval rating, depending on what happens here in early 2025. But you can see the 2030 net electoral college forecast with Texas and Florida, two Republican states, both easily voted Republican this cycle by double-digit percent. Texas getting 4 electoral votes, Florida gaining 3, California losing 4, New York losing 3. So that's pretty clear-cut, ironclad. The heavy Democrat states are losing electoral votes, significant amounts, and the Republican states are gaining them. The total breakdown: Republicans plus 12, Democrats minus 12, and the adjustment would be Trump 324, Harris 214. The reason this is so interesting is because the Democrats could have their little phony blue wall and it wouldn't matter based off of this allotment of in terms of the electoral votes. I mean, you also have a state like Arizona, which I think is shifting more to the right, gaining another electoral vote. You've got Oregon losing one. You've got Minnesota, which has been a very tough state for Republicans to win. You've got Illinois, another Democrat state, losing some. You've got some SEC states. Georgia's a state that Democrats could win. That's but it's just one, and also, right, we obviously know Trump won the state in 2024. So also Rhode Island losing an electoral vote. Also Idaho gaining one. I know Idaho is gaining a population, but yeah, this is very, very good. And look, we'll see what happens when it comes to this in the next 4 or 5 years. Will there be migration back into California after the whole pandemic and the strict lockdowns forced people out? I highly doubt it. It costs too much, but we'll have to wait and see. This is a projection, but it's going to be very, very hard. And look, things are going to shift. They might try and maybe in 2028 and say maybe Texas is going to go back in 2032, but it's like, winning it by 13, 14 points is going to be very hard. Same thing with Florida. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do if this is their electoral math. They're going to have to win all of the Rust Belt. They're going to have to make Georgia a blue state. North Carolina is going to have to be a blue state to combat Texas and Florida gaining electoral votes, because their initial thing was, oh, we'll just take Texas, and it's just not going to happen. So now it's like, well, you're starting to lose Arizona. It's becoming a Republican state, just like Ohio, just like Florida. Where's their next move? Especially with it, you compound it and it makes it worse when you're talking about the electoral votes. I mean, we'll see what happens in 2028. 2028 is going to operate, unfortunately, under the same electoral votes. The allotment is 2024, which really was not accurate in and of itself. It miscounted Florida. Florida should have more electoral votes. Liberal states should have less. The way they counted the census in 2020 was a total mess, in part because of the pandemic. But it's something to where I almost wonder if Republicans look into doing something about that, if that's possible, considering they control Congress right now. The allotment was wrong in terms of the way the electoral votes were counted. But either way, if you're a Democrat, it's got to be demoralizing. But, 2032 is a political eternity away. Who knows? It's just something interesting to look at, because Democrat states are clearly, they're all losing electoral votes and Republican states are gaining them. And it's not like it's swing states or anything. It's California, New York, two liberal states. They're going to be liberal. We know New York kind of shifted a little bit, but it's a liberal state. There's no doubt about it. And then Texas and Florida, two Republican states gaining them. And I think the really big game changer that liberals didn't see coming was Florida becoming a Republican state with all of the electoral votes. It totally crippled them, and it really narrowed their paths. They always had so many more paths in 08, in 2012, 2016, 2020, because Florida was viewed really all of those years, as, even 2020, as a slight Democrat state. It was a swing state, but you look at the polls, it was a Democrat lean. And to have something like that to where the adjustment is just, it's a clear Republican state. It's like 30 electoral votes going to be a lock for Republican. It's just, it cripples their electoral math. So I'm sure they're very unhappy about that. And with the cost of living so bad in California and New York, it's probably not going to improve. California might end up losing 5 electoral votes, although I think there's a projection not based off of where we are right now in terms of population loss. So you can make an argument because the 2020, early 2020s were such an aberration in terms of population loss for California because of the stingent restrictions based off of COVID, that maybe they'll gain people back and they'll only lose 2 electoral votes. I don't know what'll happen. We'll have to see. But those states are going to lose electoral votes. Just nobody wants to live there. It's too expensive. And then you've got the favorability rating. Biden sitting minus 13.5. I mean, look, this is actually good for Biden. Biden was always around. Maybe it's different than approval. No, it's different than approval. That's my bad. Favorability rating for Trump +2. Pretty remarkable. You can take a look at this. Is the first time Trump, in terms of favorability. Now his approval rating, I think at one point was +1. That was according to 538. That was back in 2016, right when he came in. But yeah, this is clearly different. You can take a look at when Trump won, even his favorability rating, which again is different than approval. His favorability rating really only spiked up to around 44%, so there's no honeymoon there. But now Trump's favorability rating is basically at 50%, with unfavorable being at 48. So it's a gain, 49 to 47. Excuse me. So it is a gain there. And look, when it comes to Trump's approval rating, he certainly looks like it's going to have a little bit of a honeymoon period, not to the level of Biden. You look at Biden's approval rating, it was like 60% when he came in, and it's just hilarious how quickly he fell off the table after Afghanistan. But, ending that war with Russia, Ukraine, look, you're going to get the liberal narratives. It's going to be, well, the cost of everything is so high that, their new narrative now is, Trump said he would lower grocery prices. He's not doing it. He said he's not going to. Well, no, it's going to take time. That's what tariffs take time to actually work and get the jobs back into the United States and get better product produced. And that's what we're going for. But this is what liberals have to understand. Americans just dealt with basically 20% inflation, because you had 7% inflation rate back in 2022, 1 month, and the next month it was 9%. It's basically a total of 20%. That inflation rate is going to affect people way more than the rise of costs because of tariffs ever would. So we're already used to high prices. And under Biden, it was so extreme because of the inflation. And the inflation was in part caused by the pandemic, but also by Biden and that $1.9 trillion rescue plan that they had. They also authorized another stimulus check, which is just printing more inflation, basically, because it's printing more money, as well as the unemployment benefits, which were really crippling. And that's something that people don't really mention. They always say, well, there's inflation because Biden had to deal with the pandemic, and that's just what happens. You have to print more money. You have to give people things because they can't work. Well, no, then they extended the unemployment benefits, which crippled everything, because then employers had to raise the wages to get people to work, because there's no incentive to work if they're getting unemployment benefits extended and they're just getting free money. And that hurts the entire system, and it's a ripple down effect, and then it affects other countries as well. And they're like, other countries had to deal with inflation as well. Yeah, well, the United States it is the number one overseer of everything. It is the US dollar. It is the global currency. And so if it goes through an inflationary period, it's going to have a trickle down effect on other countries. But then they compare it to other countries. Well, the United States, in effect, is going to cause inflation in other countries as well, because we are the number one big dog. And so I don't know what to talk about, but let's just get back to this. The favorability, I think they're going to try and swing it like, oh, he's raising cost stuff, but people are not going to feel it because inflation was so much worse. That's what I was trying to say. I got to start getting faster with what I want to say and stay on topic. But that's basically what it is. So even if it raises it, 20% inflation is way worse than what tariffs are going to do to the cost of food. And then the other thing, if he's able to end the war with Russia, Ukraine, the libs are going to try and swing it and say, oh, it's terrible, it's appeasement. I don't think Trump's going to lose a deal. Like, I think people are surprised. It's not going to be appeasement to Russia, but in general, no matter really what happens, I think people are going to like it. I think the vast majority, who cares what the 30% leftists think? The independents and the Republicans, they're the ones that are going to like this, and that's going to help Trump's approval. So if he can start off within the first few months getting an end to that war, or getting some type of agreement in place that will end the war eventually, that's going to be a positive in terms of his approval rating, and that's going to really get the ball rolling for Trump to have a very positive administration and be liked by the American people. I think is that Russia-Ukraine situation and trying to really end that and get a good deal, not for Russia, not for Ukraine, but for the United States of America, not for NATO either. Well, I mean, in effect, if you want to say NATO is an extension of the U.S., but that's really what it's going to come down to. If he can end that quickly, that's going to get the ball rolling. That's going to get a lot of positive propaganda pouring in for Trump, and the appeasement that they say really won't matter. So that listen, this is good, but we'll see when Trump gets into office. End the war, Russia, Ukraine, the Israel-Palestine situation. It's very likely a two-state solution, but we'll see if Trump can also, we've seen movements there potentially help coax some type of deal. That's going to help significantly in terms of the approval. So we'll have to see. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the